It was while Andrew Carnegie was on his honeymoon in 1887 that he met Walter Damrosch, who was a conductor and a composer, and the two men started talks about a new concert hall in New York City. 2 years later, Andrew Carnegie was already buying property for this hall, and the design process started immediately after that. These two men really wasted no time. The total cost of building Carnegie Hall was $1.1 million, which was a huge sum of money in the late 19th century. The first concert took place in Carnegie Hall on May 5th, 1891, and standing on the podium conducting that night was Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. It wasn't until 2 years later that the hall officially took on the name Carnegie Hall, although people had been calling it that since the beginning. In its first years, the hall was not self-sufficient. It couldn't support itself financially, and so Andrew Carnegie actually covered the operating costs for the first several years. Andrew Carnegie died in 1919, and Mrs. Carnegie sold Carnegie Hall 6 years later. She sold it to a real estate developer who said that he would keep the building functioning as a music hall as long as it was financially stable. And this worked out just fine until the 1950s. Because in the 1950s, rock music burst onto the cultural scene. The number of people wanting to go to events at Carnegie Hall went way down, and this was a huge, huge problem. So they decided that Carnegie Hall needed to go. They made plans to demolish the building, and the demolition date was set for March 30th, 1960. Now, this obviously never happened. What did happen is that the city of New York purchased the hall and saved the building. But then they decided that they needed to change along with the times, and this began the next phase in Carnegie Hall's history.